Franz Wagner makes his return to the Orlando Magic, but unfortunately, the team does not right their wrongs. They have a poor shooting night against the Portland Trail Blazers, and they fall 101-79. We're going to get into that game and Franz Wagner's return, what it means for the Orlando Magic now that he's back, and unfortunately, as the Magic now are on a 5-game losing streak, what does that mean for the team going forward? But first, guys, before we get into tonight's game, plus Franz Wagner, make sure that you guys subscribe to the channel. It is the easiest and best way to support us here at Magic Digest. We're trying to come out with Orlando Magic basketball content just about every day, and we want to build an Orlando Magic basketball community here on YouTube. All right, let's take a look at going into tonight. Who was available? Bataze's still out. Gary Harris was out. Both of those guys were, maybes, but Bataze was doubtful to start. Harris was questionable. Neither of them ended up playing. Jonathan Isaac was available after his illness, and Jet Howard did end up giving it a go with his ankle issues. So we actually ended up with a fairly healthy team. We're still missing Suggs, but you got Franz and Paolo Banchero still back. Franz was on a minutes restriction, and this was great. Honestly, if you guys tuned into an episode or one of the previous ones, I did actually mention that. I didn't think Franz Wagner was going to play. I thought we would have already known and heard the announcement that he would have played against the Blazers yesterday, but we didn't. We didn't hear about it until right before game time, honestly. Right around the later evening portion of the day today, and so he just decided to give it a go, and that was actually kind of surprising to me personally, especially because they're welcoming in Detroit on Saturday and thinking maybe they can, that's a more important Eastern Conference game, but I'm guessing Franz Wagner's just going to give it a go in that game as well and not going to rest or anything like that. So they figured, why not toss him out here against the Blazers? But unfortunately, this team did not have it today. Franz Wagner played okay. It certainly wasn't like when Paolo Banchero returned or anything like that. Paolo Banchero's performance today was really, really bad. We'll get into that in just a second. But for Franz Wagner, it was a nice jolt of energy. At least that's what we thought. But he was 9 of 19 from the field, 20 points. Didn't make any of his threes. Had a little bit of foul trouble too at certain points in the game, but his return was nice to see, but the team was not able to take advantage of it. But one step closer to being healthy, and we'll continue to monitor some of the other players that were out. All right, let's take a look at what happened in this game, because anytime you score under 80 points, that is scary, and that is something that you're not going to win any games in, and this Orlando Magic team just did not have it today. Had very little at halftime, unfortunately, and it was almost borderline embarrassing. They had 39 points at half, 16 turnovers, I do believe, at halftime. That was kind of like the main thing that was really keeping this team down. Why they ended up with 79 points. Yeah, we've seen some poor shooting performances, but they had so many turnovers. That was really the struggle. But 34% from the field, 24% from three. Not going to cut it whatsoever. As you can see, Paolo Banchero, 1 of 14 from the floor, got pretty much all of his points from the free throw line, and Franz really didn't even have any business leading the team in points, but he just had enough shots to do so. Anthony Black ended up with 12 points. Jet Howard actually ended up playing pretty decently, shooting the ball well from the three-point range, and Tristan da Silva off the bench looked comfortable at times, but just too little, too late for many of those guys, especially in the second half when, the Orlando Magic just waved the white flag with, 5 minutes left to go in the game. There wasn't really much there at all, but just poor shooting tonight. And unfortunately for Franz Wagner, his return to the basketball court was not good. Now, where does this leave the Orlando Magic? Well, we know that they are not shooting well right now. They are the worst shooting team in the NBA. And I did mention in the previous video how we should not take it for granted, the fact that we are losing all these games, but because we're just injured. We are losing these games also because we are not shooting the ball well. We shouldn't just take this time for granted, this part of the season for granted, and say, oh, well, we'll get healthy, and when we're healthy, we'll turn it on. This team is 23-23. I get it. You're only right around the midpoint of the season, but this has been a very, very putrid month. Following a 5-7 month, this is not exactly how you finish or lead yourself into the season strong. Now, there's plenty of games to catch up in. I'm not saying that this team is doomed. I'm not saying to hit the panic button, but I'm just saying this team needs to watch out because with Franz Wagner returning and now having Paolo back into the lineup and he's playing well, doesn't seem to be on too much of a minutes restriction. I mean, tonight was tough to just assess, right? But he played 33 minutes. He's pretty much a full go. But with both of those guys pretty much out there, there's no excuse, for any reason why we shouldn't beat this Portland Trailblazers team. And they weren't able to do it tonight. And they're hosting Detroit, who is now ahead of us in the standings on Saturday. There should be some urgency, something left for this team to conquer, to continue to try to take. Bitadze not being in the lineup does hurt, but Garrett Harris not being out, we can deal with that. We have to be able to deal with that. We should be able to deal with that. Jalen Suggs not being in the lineup does hurt, but I think with Anthony Black, KCP's acquisition in the offseason, and even just Cole Anthony, who didn't play tonight because he was sick, Cole Anthony being out there should be enough to be able to make up for Jalen Suggs' absence. It was one thing when Franz and Paolo Banchero were out. Now they're back in the lineup. Now it's time to start racking up these wins because this team is falling too far down the Eastern Conference standings. This team is not a 7th place team. They're tied in the same amount of games back from Cleveland as Atlanta, but they have the total amount of games played above Atlanta. We're 23 and 23. They're 22 and 22. So obviously they're ahead right now. They're getting the tiebreaker, but they're only a half game. We're only a half game ahead of Miami at 9. And now way further ahead of Chicago at 10. So there's no real stressor, especially with Philly being at 15 and 27 at the 11th seed. There's no real stress that this team's going to fall out of the play-in. But we were talking about getting home court in the first round. Well, Milwaukee's 25 and 17 at the 4th seed. So this team needs to pick it up because this is not good. And these are serious, tangible issues. Does Jalen Suggs solve your shooting problem when he comes back? Does Bitadze solve the shooting problem when we come back? I mean, they certainly solve a bit of a scoring problem, but does Cole Anthony solve it? Like, do any of these players that are injured right now solve it? I'm just very worried about this team, even with Franz and Paolo healthy. Can they rise up the standings and get back to where they need to be? I think they can with a good month. But be careful. Because this team is now in danger of potentially falling a game under 500 and losing against the team that's right ahead of them in Detroit in the Eastern Conference standings, thus putting them into a further hole and losing that head-to-head battle against them. Because that would be the second loss in the last 3 games against the Pistons. Just not timely, not good. But still, there were some positives, and the fact that this team is healthy is really good. Also, this team is still very stout defensively, so always can count on that. I don't mean to be such a Debbie Downer about this team and what they need to improve on, but maybe a move should be necessary for the trade deadline because right now this team does not look like they're doing all that is necessary to win these basketball games, especially shooting-wise. Shooting is a very, very tough thing for this team. But good thing that we got Franz Wagner back. Sucks that it was spoiled by the Trailblazers. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. What exactly does this team need to do? I don't mean, and this feels like a very panic button-y, kind of video, but it's really not that. But this team does need to figure something out because I think that this team has shown us through the first 46 games of this season that they can't shoot, even with Franz and Paolo out there. So maybe there's a change that needs to happen. But guys, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. But that's all the time I have for you guys today. Next time, I will see you guys with more Orlando Magic basketball content.